Worthy colleagues, it's a great honor welcoming you all on this platform of Climate Risk and Financial Council under the leadership of Shri Rela. As you know, this platform is a blessing in disguise for the people who have the appetite for knowledge on ESG importance, which is now gripping the world like a new craze. We keep inviting important speakers on various aspects of ESG. We are right now running an 8-series program on Banking Quest, which is receiving a tremendous amount of response worldwide. And parallelly also, we keep inviting distinguished speakers. Today, let me introduce you all to a fantastic emerging ESG expert, Mr. Alok Panigrahi, who is a senior manager, climate change and sustainability services in E&Y, based in India. He will be today deliberating on sustainability reporting under BRSR Framework of SEBI. SEBI is the market regulator, as you all know, in India, and their compliances are very, very important if you approach the market for investment. I'm very sure that Alok will take us through various requirements of compliances. I'm delighted to submit that Shri Alok Panigrahi is an accomplished auditor of carbon footprint management. He's an expert in ESG reporting frameworks, and of course on ratings like BRSR, GRI, and TCFD. Alok is blessed with the acumen of implementing cost-saving measures for moderating the pricing in terms of raw material usage, manpower optimization, and of course, the machine utilization worldwide. Today, I request him to give his best on sustainability reporting under BRSR Framework of SEBI. Welcome, Mr. Panigrahi. Please begin.
Yeah. Thanks, Hargobind sir, for setting the context and for my brief introduction. So let me share my screen, and I thanks everyone for participating. I will ensure that the time that you will spend, you will take something with you in terms of learning. And if you have any queries, we will set aside few times in the end so that we can discuss more on the questions and we can deliberate more on that. So let me share my screen and please let me know once it is visible.
It's good.
So, okay, perfect. Okay. So rightly explained by Hargobind sir, as you understand that ESG is gripping the world tightly, and we know that a lot of things is coming not only in India but all over the world. If you look into European market, American market, or maybe the Middle East, a lot of things is happening in terms of how you can report your non-financial aspect, that is sustainability parameters. So today's session, I have divided that into 5 parts. So initially, I will set the context in terms of what exactly this non-financial reporting is, what exactly ESG is. Then we will directly deep dive into BRSR, that is Business Responsibility and Sustainability Reporting. What are the benefits and key challenges that different companies are facing? What are the way forwards? And finally, as I said, we will set aside a few time slot for interaction and understanding more if you have any queries. Okay, so primarily, presently, everyone knows that sustainability, ESG is gaining too much of prominence. But what exactly sustainability is? So normally it is all about meeting our own needs today without compromising the ability of the future generation to meet their need at the coming future. So just to give an example, suppose you have been placed in a box and that is full of oxygen, and you have been told that in your lifetime, for you, for your children, and for their children, you have to consume this much amount of oxygen that is there in the box. Then what you will do today, you will consume X amount of oxygen. Then gradually you will try to see, you will be saving few things so that your predecessors who are coming, they will also enjoy rather than going out outside searching for this oxygen in the box. The same way the sustainability concept is as such. Today, whatever you are operating in your business, in your personal life, how you can use the resources optimizing way so that that will meet your purpose. At the same time, in the future, all the people who will come, they will rather enjoy the moment that you've been created, and they will be able to create values altogether. But what exactly this ESG is? ESG is quite a new, I would say, but the term was first coined in 2004 in one of the United Nations study, that is Who Cares When. Then it has become kind of more synonym with sustainability nowadays. But what I would say is, in terms of when we talk about ESG, ESG is a way to quantify the sustainability. What I have done is here I have tried to decode this and ESG part. So ESG has been decoded into environment, social, and governance aspect. So in environment, it is all about a organization, how exactly it is operating within its physical natural environment and using different natural resources to create some values around. So different KPIs which falls under this environment basket is your climate change aspect, renewable energy, water, waste, and the sourcing part. The next part is the S. S stands for social, where the social is how a business is creating impact with its stakeholders. So when I'm talking about stakeholders, again, it is kind of internal as well as external. Internal is all the employees, all these contractual employees, everyone. But when I'm talking about external stakeholders, it is the communities, it is the customers, it is the vendors with whom they are operating. So the very specific indicators are OHS, that is occupational health and safety, the labor relations, human rights, employee well-being, community development. So these are the few specific indicators I have used here just for your understanding. And finally, the G part, that is the governance section, which is very important because we have seen that no doubt how good the company is in terms of their financial parameters. If the governance structure is not good, they bite the dust. And we have seen that so big companies have go bankruptcy, has faced bankruptcy and could able to see the backlash of the society as well. So it is all about the corporate governance in terms of business integrity, how you are adhering to different compliances, different requirement, and how you are doing business with proper accountability and adhering to different ethical business practices. So that sets the narrative for the governance. And just to brief about some KPIs, it is your anti-corruption, anti-bribery, the Whistleblower Act, the different rules and regulations, different policies, the how you are operating your boards. So everything falls under this governance basket. So when I say this ESG, why this is important and what it means for an organization. So when you set these ESG parameters, when you set this context for yourself, for the company, so ultimately what will happen? You will reduce your environmental footprint, you will fulfill your social responsibility, you will have a sustainable and strong business growth, and due to a proper governance structure, accountability will be at the highest level, so that whatever value you will create, that will be realized in a good way. So this is the overall aspect of ESG. But right now, why exactly this ESG is emerging? Why today we are discussing about this BRSR? So in the recent years, we have seen a rise of lot of ESG reporting frameworks that may be something related to global reporting initiatives, the integrated report. We have heard a lot about sustainable development goals, that is of United Nations having 17 goals, 169 targets. The SASB, which is again a reporting framework, which is prevalently used in USA. The same way, there are different ESG ratings to understand how a company is doing better in this non-financial space in the sustainability landscape, to understand what is the health of organization, how much a company is compliant towards ESG. There are different rating systems are available. Just to give an example, DJSI, the Morgan Stanley Composite Index, the Carbon Disclosure Projects, the Sustainalytics. So these companies, what they do, they try to look at the publicly available information. Some rating system give a kind of different online questionnaire to understand what kind of and what kind of ESG compliance the company is doing. So that is how the ESG ecosystem is working. First, you do such things. Once you create some value, then you need to report that. Once you report, one external agency, maybe some rating system, will try to evaluate you. And once you are evaluated, you can be someone's, like suppose a investor is spending money and they want to invest on X and Y operating in the same sector. The company which is having better sustainability parameters, or those who are doing better in the non-financial aspect, they will be given more prominence or more first priority. So that is the whole narrative behind why exactly this reporting and rating is important. So we know that all the companies do report their financial parameters. That may be EBITDA, their net profit, their revenue, what kind of lending is happening. So which shows a kind of balance sheet and how the company is wealthy, or how the company is good in terms of the financial parameters. But how exactly the non-financial parameters can be reported? How exactly a company can report the extra financial parameters? So non-financial is something considered in different ways. Some call it extra financial, some call it non-financial, some call it sustainable indicators. So that is how it is, all right. But how exactly we have to report? There is definite guidelines. So just like I was explaining, there are different reporting frameworks are there, but these are voluntary standards. So in India, how exactly it started? So you would have heard a lot of things about BRSR, that is business responsibility and sustainability reporting. So what happened in May 2021, SEBI put forth a legislation or a regulation for ESG reporting in India in the form of BRSR. But is it the first time we did it? No, we have been doing it since the very beginning. So way back in 2009, when there was the preparation of this national voluntary guidelines, so the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, they started with a voluntary guidelines for the corporate sustainability reporting. So that set the bedrock for non-financial reporting in India. And I would say that is the first step towards mainstreaming the concept of business responsibility in India. So once this, that is the voluntary guidelines has been put forth, the next step was in 2011 when the national voluntary guidelines has been come into the picture, and where the companies has been asked to report on this non-voluntary guidelines. So the next part is the business responsibility reporting. So once the 2009, the National Voluntary Guidelines came into the picture, in 2012, the concept of business responsibility report, that is BRR, were come into the picture. So SEBI made it mandatory for the top 100 listed companies to report on business responsibility report that has been prepared using National Voluntary Guidelines. So once the BRR has been there, gradually we have seen that Indian companies or Indian government is the first government in the world to formalize corporate social responsibility. So as per the section 135 of Companies Act, so all the companies, those who are having profit, there is a threshold, they need to report on their CSR. So that is a part again in this non-financial reporting space. So so again in 2015, this BRR has been extended to 500 companies, and in 2019, the applicability of BRR, that is business responsibility report, was extended to top 1,000 listed companies. But what changed in May 2021? This BRSR came into the picture. Right now, from financial year 22-23, it is mandatory for all the companies, those who are listed in India, the top 1,000 listed companies, to report on BRSR. So there is no specific guidelines that all companies should not report. So others can report as a voluntary basis, but all the companies, all that is in the top 1,000 listed list, they need to report on this BRSR. So 2021 it was voluntary, and 22-23 it has become mainstream. And it is important to understand what exactly the guidelines about BRSR, what exactly it specifies, and why we should report under BRSR. So I will give a little bit overview of BRSR. So highlight of the BRSR. So what exactly BRSR says? It is more about the impact investing part. So initially when the BRR was there, it is more about reporting a little bit of information about what you are creating value in social aspect, little bit of information about your environmental initiatives. But right now it is more about impact investment. How exactly you are creating values. There are different principles, how exactly a company is creating values around that, you need to report on that. Then the second part is the benchmarking global reporting standards. So benchmarking global reporting standards is There are a lot of reporting standards are there. There are different rating systems are there. There are different principles are there all over the world. But how exactly you can take the best out of that? Those who know about Indian Constitution. When we started Indian Constitution, it is not something the original of Indian entity. We try to get everything whichever is there all over the world, whichever the best practices are there, we try to accommodate that. The same way what BRSR, what SEBI has done, they try to understand how we can integrate different requirement of other reporting parameters, other different reporting standards. So that is why what happens, suppose you are reporting using BRSR, you will get a narrative that you won't have to report on other aspect as well. So there is a cross reference you can do. Just to give an example, suppose you are reporting using GRI, and if you have started reporting using BRSR, that is business responsibility sustainability reporting, you can give a cross linkages to that. So multiple and double counting, double reporting can be avoided. So that is how this part is there. And most important part is right now when we understand this climate change is very important, the companies need not only look into their financial health, but non-financial health as well. So SEBI clearly mandated that all the companies need to give training and awareness programs to not only their employees, but their workforce, those who are in the contractual part, as well as all the board of directors and senior leadership. So there is a clear narrative that you need to report on different part related to performance improvement, something related to health and safety, something related to environmental part, or more about the NGRBC, that is National Guidelines on Responsible Business Conduct. So that is something need to be reported. The fourth part is assessment disclosure. So as I said before, there are a lot of indicators that we will be reporting in BRSR. So as we are concentrating more on impact investing, so we need to disclose in a better way that what are the different specific parameters that is as per the requirement of the relevant regulatory bodies and regulatory laws, how exactly the company is adhering to that. So that is how we need to report. And the fifth and very important part is, suppose there are companies, those who are starting their journey, those who are at a very nascent stage, and there are few companies which are quite matured. So right now the BRSR, the SEBI, what they have done, they have divided the whole BRSR into essential and leadership indicators. So essential is something that is mandatory for the top 1,000 companies. At the same time, the leadership indicators, which the SEBI also acknowledges that, okay, this is something might be difficult for the companies to report right now. Just to give an example, in environment section, the scope 3 assessment. So that is something we know that it is a bit complex. So right now it is in the leadership indicator. The same way, there are many indicators which are in leadership indicators, which is voluntary to the organization. But the essential part is something that you need to report in a positive way. So these are the 5 basic tenets of BRSR, I would say. So just like I was explaining the NGRBC, that is National Guidelines on Responsible Business Conduct, the bedrock of this BRSR is this 9 principles, that is principle 1 to 9, I will explain. But BRSR is just like we were discussing that how exactly it has integrated the different global reporting platforms, different guidelines and different rating systems, so that you don't have to cross report, right? So you can do this cross reference. So that is all these things have been taken into consideration. And BRSR, there is a 3 reporting part. One is the general disclosure, the management and the process that I will explain later. And the final part is the principle by performance. So when I talking about general disclosure, it is more about your company, what kind of employees you have, what kind of businesses you have, where your operation is. You need to explain all these things. The second part is the management and processes. It is all about, as I said, the governance is something very important for the organization. So when I'm talking about governance, so it also stands with different policies, how the board is managing the day-to-day affairs of the organization. So how the management and processes has been established in the organization to take care of the non-financial aspect. So that is how this is management and processes is the section B. And section C is based on all these principles that has been highlighted here. So for ease of understanding, what I have done, I have color coded that the green colors that you can see is related to environment. The blue colors are the social part, and the white or off-white is something called governance part. So the principle 1 talks about integrity and ethics. Principle 2 is about sustainable products. Principle 3 is all about your equal opportunity other aspect. Principle 4 is your stakeholder interest. Principle 5 talks about the human right aspect of the organization. Principle 6 predominantly about environment, where we talk about energy, water, waste, and your preparedness related to climate risk. The seventh is more about the regulatory policies in terms of your public policy advocacy, your membership to different boards, how ethically you are doing business and correlating with different factors. That is the very important part. The principle 8 is all about the inclusive growth part, where we are talking about CSR in terms of impact assessment, your IPR, intellectual property right, how you are procuring your different substances. So all these things comes under your principle 8, that is talking about inclusive growth. And the final part is the principle 9, which is about the consumer and IT. Because we do understand that in terms of cybersecurity and data privacy, it is gaining too much of prominence right now. And every company is at a bridge that suppose any breach happens or any kind of problem they are facing related to, that can lead to a lot of loss for them. So that is how there is a clear-cut guidelines that what the companies need to report, starting from cybersecurity, data privacy, what kind of breaches, your complaints, what is the mechanism you have. So everything is there in principle 9. So again, when we try to understand what are the different parts of BRSR, SEBI has done a very good work. So why I'm saying very good work, because they also understand that out of the top 1,000 listed companies, there would be few companies who will be starting their BRSR at a very beginning stage, who will be at the nascent stage. So for them, they have designed this BRSR Lite. So BRSR Lite is a kind of simplified version where you don't have to report on all the parameters that is there. But when you're talking about the BRSR comprehensive version, it is having these three parts where I explained like your general disclosure about your organization, in management disclosure part about the governance and leadership part, and the final part is your principle wise disclosure, which is about these 9 principles that has been divided into essential and leadership. All the essential indicators you are bound to respond, and even SEBI has said that if you are unable to respond to something, you can highlight that or you can give a commentary that why you are unable to report. So in terms of reporting, it is quite flexible at present without any kind of fine and other things to be that has been mentioned in the public consultation papers. But it is all about the 3 structure: general disclosure, management disclosure, and principle wise disclosures. So what are the benefits? Suppose today you are reporting using BRSR. So what could be the benefit you can get? So we have seen that all the different indices, those who are operating those Nifty indexes, those companies which are having proper ESG parameters, and the Nifty ESG indexing is outperforming the Nifty 100 index. So why it is outperforming? Because right now all the investors are trying to understand how a company can create value, how a company is creating value in the non-financial space. So in the left-hand side, we can see there are multiple things in this. What are the benefits of this BRSR or the non-financial reporting? Starting with improved stakeholder relationship. Once you will start reporting, there are multiple parameters are there, multiple platforms are there, which says that how a company could be more vigilant, how a company could create more values with interacting with the different stakeholders. So that is the improved stakeholder relationship part. The company with regulatory norms, because it gives a kind of impact investing other aspects. So it will be very much clear how exactly you are adhering to different norms and how you are reporting that, whether any kind of mishaps are there, whether any kind of problems that companies is faced, you need to report that in a positive way. So the investors, your stakeholders, they would able to understand how exactly the company is creating values around. The second, third part is the enhanced innovation and responsible investment. So there are multiple indicators where the BRSR is asking very clearly what kind of capex and R&D investment you are doing, so that that is being creating values in environment and social space. At the same time, it is also trying to understand how exactly the money that is being channelized by the company is being channelized to some specific responsible investment part in terms of creating values that we have seen in sustainable development goals, that 17 goals. If the environment and social investment is having a kind of investment pattern which is helping in improvement in the environment and social parameters. So that is the 3 part. The fourth one is the long-term value creation. So whenever we are creating any kind of better reporting, we are taking proper targets and we are reporting around that. What we are doing, we are creating a long-term values. Because today we know that how the Tata Group is widely accepted as the leader in terms of their governance and other parameters. So that is how you will create value around that. Suppose tomorrow, because of your greenwashing, because of your irresponsible business practices, you are facing kind of a backlash. So you won't be the favorite for investors or the stakeholder in the coming future. But this BRSR and this non-financial reporting gives you a kind of a narrative, how exactly you can able to create value for the long-term part. The final, the last two is in terms of the meaningful decision making. So when I'm saying meaningful decision making, once you start reporting, you will understand that what kind of value being created year on year basis. So you understood that, okay, yes, last year your total greenhouse gas emission was X amount of tons of CO2 equivalent, and this year it has increased. So you will try to understand how exactly your greenhouse emission is increasing, how exactly water is increasing, water consumption is increasing. If you could able to understand that, and you could able to properly channelize different ESG factor in your decision making, ultimately what will happen once you start channelizing your fund, channelizing your energy into something productive, something active, that will be more meaningful, and that will help you to create long-term value creation. And the final part is distant market positioning. So once you are more adhering to different regulatory norms, you are good and sound in terms of your financial parameters and non-financial parameters, you will be way ahead compared to your peers, which will give you a kind of business narrative, business imperative, that how you can attract different investor, you can attract easy money, and you can create values altogether, being one of the best choice for all your stakeholders. So this is the overall benefits that I would say for BRSR or non-financial reporting. But benefits is fine, BRSR is fine, non-financial reporting is fine. But what are the exactly challenges the companies are facing right now? So first, in the initial part is the sudden changes the reporting requirement. So initially, what used to happen, the BRR was quite a kind of easy framework. If you refer to any company's annual report, you will find what exactly the BRR is, that is business responsibility reporting. It had hardly 59 questions. Right now in the BRSR, there are 140 questions. The questions have increased around threefold. You can see that. At the same time, in BRR, what used to happen, there used to be many qualitative indicators. But right now in BRSR, there are so many indicators that is both qualitative as well as quantitative. So once the qualitative indicators you need to do, so what you have to do, you have to report on so many things, those which are essential, that is very important. And those who are voluntary, that's something you can stop at this moment, or you should not report right now. I won't say should not, but it is a voluntary requirement. But ultimately, the requirement has increased. The companies are facing challenges because they don't have the system right now. Then the next part is about the increasing cross-departmental input for BRSR. Earlier, what used to happen? Someone from your compliance team or your HR team or maybe some other department used to handle this BRR part, and they used to report that, because there was very hardly 59 questions, which is more about the organization, more about the company secretary who used to fill. But right now, the 140 questions having more than 300 indicators, the KPIs, requires so many departments to come closer. Like we can see that HR, environment, health and safety, IT, R&D, purchase, operations, your value chain, your supply chain, everyone need to come closer to come to respond to this requirement. So that is why, right, it needs a lot of collaboration between different departments to come to a conclusion that how reporting can happen. So the final part is increasing performance expectation from the stakeholders. So right now we would have seen that BRSR is definitely mandatory. It has come for top 1,000 listed companies. But again, there is a requirement of BRSR core. Again, something is coming up like all the companies top 150, 250, they need to assure their data having reasonable assurance. So all these things are gaining important. All the stakeholders are asking in terms of whether you are reporting your non-financial parameter or not. What is your rating with respect to different non-financial rating like DJSI, CDP, even your MSCI? So it is clear, giving a clear expectation and increase that how the companies need to report all these things together. So again, just to brief you about what exactly the basic difference between BRR and BRSR. The first part is the reporting section. So initially what used to happen in BRR, there used to be 5 different components, 5 reporting sections. Initially, there was general information, your financial details, a little bit of other information about your organizational presence, business responsibility information, and principle-wise performance. It was kind of a very subjective interpretation. But in BRSR, as we've seen before, it is more about the general disclosure, the management process, and C part is the principle-wise performance. So it is more about making it more quantitative, and also taking care of the qualitative indicators and having more the key sustainability indicators so that we can report in a positive way. The next part is the disclosure in annual report. So earlier what used to happen, the companies used to report in their annual report is a part of BRR report. But right now, definitely it is one of the requirement as a part of your annual report you need to put. At the same time, the SEBI has come up with an XBRL format. You need to fill those information in the MCA 21 portal using that specific template. Earlier in BRR, there used to be concentrating more about the qualitative disclosures, but right now it has increased to qualitative as well as quantitative indicators. In terms of the formats and everything, definitely right now the BRSR light and comprehensive has come into the picture. Earlier there used to be 59 questions, very limited quantitative indicators, but right now, as I said, there is 140 total questions having 300 plus quantitative indicators. So that is the whole changes that has happened from BRR to BRSR. That is where the companies are facing so much of difficulties in terms of responding. But once you have a system in terms of how you can report, how exactly you can report on different environment social indicators, that would become a cakewalk for you in terms of once the system is set, you will be able to report in a positive way. So as I was saying about the recent guidelines of SEBI, how exactly these things have changed and how the things are changing right now. So when we see initially BRSR is voluntary for all the listed companies till last year, but this financial year it has become important for all the organization to report on report on BRSR. The top 1,000 listed companies are mandatory. So it has been understood that in the coming days, it will become mandatory for all the companies, those who are listed or unlisted in India. So that will set a narrative in terms of how exactly you are creating values and you will be more responsible in terms of setting the business. The most important part is right now there is a requirement of BRSR core. So from 25, 26, so from the next year onwards, what will happen, all the companies, the top 250 companies need to go for reasonable assurance on BRSR core. What exactly this BRSR core, I will explain in the next slide. But from next year onwards, it has become mandatory for the companies to do reasonable assurance. What exactly reasonable assurance is? Reasonable assurance is a comprehensive coverage. So it will give you a say that suppose you are reporting on environment, social and governance indicators, you need to say it need to be get a certificate from some certified agency that whatever you are reporting is all right, whatever you are reporting is correct. That is setting the accountability and other standard for you. And for 24-25, it would be mandatory for top 500 companies, and gradually it is mandatory for the top 1,000 companies. So that is how the whole cycle has been set, and right now companies are embracing to go for this reasonable assurance, because for this it will need creating your systems, creating your standard operating procedures. So everything will require to understood how you can able to report. And gradually what will happen, as we were discussing, that supply chain is very important. As much I remember, there is a practical case that it happened. There are many companies who are procuring solar panels from northern China regions. So at a time it happened, the companies were understood that all the companies which are operating in northern China region, there is a kind of human right violation there. So once that thing come into the picture, all the rating agencies, everyone started asking whether the company, those who are operating in India or maybe other sites in the worldwide, whether they are procuring any kind of solar panels from northern China. So at that time, it becomes imperative that you need to have a proper backup just to avoid the bottleneck. Suppose you have a proper supplier screening, suppose you have proper supplier assessment, you will be able to navigate the business, the bottlenecks and the problems that you are going to face. So that is why the SEBI is coming out very clearly from year of 24-25 for top 250 companies to show their supply chain disclosure. And from 24-25, it would be more about comply or explains. So that would be not assurance, would not be mandatory. But in the next year onwards, it would be mandatory for the companies to go for assurance of their supply chain parameters as well. So that is how things are changing in regulatory domain in India. And as I was explaining about this BRSR core, so you saw that in terms of BRSR indicators, there are more than 300 KPIs and around 140 questions. So in BRSR core, there are 88 KPIs are there, key performance indicators that need to be assured by agencies, 33 assurance parameters and 9 attributes. And the 9 attributes I've tried to show here. So one is your greenhouse gas footprint, one is your water footprint, what kind of investment you are doing in reducing your environmental footprint, circularity concept. The more important part is related to your well-being and safety of your employees, gender diversity, because diversity, equity, inclusion, we know that it is one of the talking point all over the world, and all the companies are trying to make their gender ratio better, because the better gender ratio company is understood to perform better compared to other companies having the skewed ratio. The next part is inclusive development. How exactly you are creating a system, you are creating values that is able to help different strata of the community, different strata of the world, so that you are able to meet the sustainable development goal as well. The next part is the fairness in engaging customer and suppliers. As we can see that customers and supplier is gaining too much of importance right now, because from 25-26, all the 250 listed companies are need to report on suppliers. So that is how it is very important. And the final part is the openness of business. Why openness of business is very important? Because right now, if you look into any company's balance sheet, you won't able to understand that how the money is being getting channelized. Suppose they are able to get money from this tax havens. So how exactly you are able to create? Because ultimately, suppose it can happen that any company which will be understood that okay, they are getting money from illicit practices, or maybe from different which is different practices which is not accepted by the law of the land, then they will be facing a lot of problems, right? So that to solve that or to meet that, SEBI has set a clear mandate that all the companies need to report on openness of business in terms of their investment, in terms of their flow of money. They need to show very clearly that how the money is channelized and how they are investing. So these are the specific 9 attributes that I was explaining. In environment, there are 4 specific attributes are there. The GHG footprint, that is greenhouse gas footprint, the water footprint, investing in reducing environment footprint, circularity, that has been the 4 indicators. And we have tried to map that to different principles. That is P6, that is principle 6, E is your essential indicators. So how exactly this is related to your BRSR? The social part as well, it is about employee and your inclusive development and the supply chain. So that has been mapped. And this governance pillar is something has come up nearly, which you won't find in BRSR right now. That is openness of business and fairness in engaging with the customers and suppliers. So this is the whole narrative and system in terms of BRSR. How exactly the companies need to report, what exactly the changes is happening, and how the things are moving in Indian landscape. So all the companies which are listed and not listed, how they can report on different non-financial reporting part. So saying that, I would say that the reporting landscape changed quite dramatically in India after the introduction of BRR, the CSR framework, the integrated reporting framework, and now the BRSR. And once these things will be further streamlined, the companies will able to report better. They will able to reap value and what exactly things can be taken care of. And definitely in terms of getting a better rating, in terms of creating value altogether, the companies would able to do better with better business practices. So this is something I wanted to present before you. Now I can see that some questions are there, but let me know if you have any queries. I would like to discuss that more, and we will try to have a better discussion so that we can understand more deeply if any specific questions are there or any specific requirement or doubts related to any specific slides.
Hey, Alok, I think maybe let me jump on because I could not control. This session is so impressive. It is flawless. Okay. Really, I was truly impressed. Okay. Now I have, I think, multiple doubts, not one doubt. First of all, you are saying the BRSR, right? I think now it is actually it is taking clues from the multiple global guidelines, and now it is coming out with a synthesized version, comprehensive. Okay, that's how I think it has evolved. Fine. Now, if you see in the landscape, the TCFD, SASB, CDSB, GRI, whatever maybe, IFRS is coming out with another version called ISSB, right? So how it is going to have an impact on BRSR?
Okay, so ISSB is a kind of a global framework. So as I showed you that there are multiple reporting frameworks out there. So there is a lot of confusion to companies that what they should go for. I should report using GRI, I should report using integrated report, or I should report on Word. But since BRSR is kind of a regulatory framework that has been suggested by SEBI, it's a regulatory requirement and it's a mandate. So all the companies, those who are reporting out of India, they will have to report using BRSR. At the same time, what happens? Company normally report using two things. One is their financial part, the annual report, and one is ESG report. In ESG report, companies normally try to go for different voluntary guidelines, like your the GRI, your integrated reporting framework, even the SASB and other things. So ISSP, the basic idea behind conceptualization of ISSP is to bring all the reporting frameworks all together and giving a comprehensive and inclusive reporting framework. So it would be have a uniform replication on all the companies, so that today, suppose any company in India or in Europe or in America, if they want to report on non-financial parameters, they will get a clear reporting framework. Then they will able to adhere to that. But saying that, I would say for Indian context, BRSR is something is going to have for longer values. And definitely because of some changes, if ISSB will present, they will accommodate that in the subsequent iterations.
Okay. Do we end up in a scenario, for example, in accounting also? So I think all companies, they are drawing their financial statement based on Indian GAAP or US GAAP. That is one thing. Another city is IFRS. So they are doing it right now currently. So are we going to push into the same scenario? Like I think for Indian context, every entity need to come out with the BRSR, and for the global context, the same entity need to again report in the ISSB. Is that the scenario what you are visualizing?
No. So what I can foresee is in terms of the requirement, as I said, that there is a kind of a cross relationship with different reporting frameworks. In BRSR, what you can see is what is being asked in CDP, what is asked in GRI. You can cross reference that. The same way, once ISSP comes out with a proper framework, you will be able to cross-link what is being requested in BRSR and with the IFRS framework. So that will happen. But there is interesting part is in terms of the reasonable assurance, what I was saying, normally companies report using A1000 AS or different assurance standard. But right now, SEBI has come up with its different assurance standard that is India centric. And there is a kind of a guidelines that there need to be proper rating systems and everything that should respect what Indian regulators are asking, rather than something not related to universal requirement. But as they are operating in India, so what are the different practices these companies can practice, and what are the requirement of these regulatory bodies? This rating system need to incorporate that in their ask. So that is how this narrative is also changing. But I would say in terms of the global requirement, in terms of global happenings, that is the global trends that is moving, Indian counterparts are quite flexible, and they are trying to incorporate multiple things in the reporting frameworks. So in the coming days, we will see a lot of iteration maybe as per the requirement. But I would say BRSR is quite comprehensive. The only problem is that is one should fit to all kind of approach. So it is same for all the companies. So companies are facing difficulties to report on multiple parameters.
Okay. Another thing, I think, what is that? Now, at least whenever I think we encounter into regulations, okay. So we are, I think, regulator will come out with some guidance, some principles, and the management of a particular entity, they will adopt and they will do it. And the assurance is the most important factor. For that, I believe we need to actually have a RCSA in place, risk and control self-assessment, right? So for anything, though I think people are, the moment I mention RCSA, people think this is something called operational risk. I don't think from that angle. I always believe that for every regulation, for every compliance, there should be a control system in place. So do we have any experience in what is that doing the controls for this assurance?
Okay. So in terms of BRSR and non-financial reporting part, as I said, governance plays a very important role. So what kind of governance structure you are incorporating in the business so that all these different requirements can be taken care of is one of the very primary and important part for all the companies, to be honest. But there is nothing as such right now where you can understand which one is responsible, how something can be done. But with the advent of this BRSR right now, as I said, there are multiple departments need to respond to different questions. just like your HR and your EHS and other department. So once the assurance will happen, there is different spokes or different HODs would be there for these departments, which will ensure whichever data is coming. So that is something need to reported in a good way, in a accountability point of view. So ultimately, it would be the requirement of the company secretary, because this is something will go in the public disclosure and it's a stat requirement. So I have seen that which department need to handle this ESG. That is a big topic. Some say the compliance team need to handle. Some say legal team need to handle. Some say environment sustainability need to be independent team. So from my experience, I have seen with the organizations, those having this ESG and sustainability as a uniform and independent team, that do better because they could able to coordinate with other departments and coming up with better solutions. So that is why you can see that in many companies right now, the role of chief sustainability officer is gaining too much of prominence. And you can see so many in CSOs. And there is a good practices that how the CSO and CFO role can be different, because CFO will always try to see everything from the financial angle, but CSO will try to see from a comprehensive angle. So that is the whole idea, and the control is happening all over the world right now.
Fantastic. And one last question. So other than the big fours, who is there in this space, I think, for providing the assurance? Other than the big fours, I know big four will do everything.
So definitely there are many companies there which are operating in Indian scale landscape. I won't be naming them, but I will text you. But there are so many companies are there which are operating in this assurance related to BRSR. Yeah.
Okay, and I need one more session from you on the assurance part, boss, because that's what I think our people will be very much interested. Because you have actually told, boss, this is required and you need to do all these things fine, but how to assure, right? Maybe I think at your convenience, maybe we will talk offline. Thank you very much. I'm truly impressed. Over to you, Siddharth and Alok.
Yeah, I think there is a raise hand by Sejad. So if you can unmute and answer question, please.
Sure. Thank you so much, Alok. That was very insightful. So my question is kind of interlinked to the previous question, wherein there was a doubt raised about the accountability and auditing of this data. So it's more of like a person, like based on your experience in your position at EY, could you share what challenges you have faced in terms of having auditable data available? So I'll tell you, I'll give you a little context. I work with a climate tech startup, and we offer an end-to-end solution for ESG reporting, carbon management, and enabling organizations of all sizes to start off on their ESG journey and ultimately transition to net zero. And a lot of them majorly are in the MSME sector. And they have a challenge to just start off. A lot of them still do not understand the importance of ESG integration into their business. And for some of them, it falls as a bomb in terms of like a compliance requirement. And for others who still don't have it as a compliance necessity, they feel it as a burden in terms of ESG integration. So how is it that in your position have you faced any sort of challenges in terms of having auditable data available?
Yeah, so that is indeed very interesting question. First, let me answer point by point. In terms of having auditable data, definitely those companies who are reporting since a long time, they are not facing any challenges because they have proper system and everything is ready in terms of giving the data. But those companies which are starting right now, they are facing difficulty because BRSR is asking about 2 years of data, last year data and this year data. Those companies who could able to collect data of this financial year, they are facing difficulty to get the data of last year. But saying that assurance point of view, we can see that suppose, let me give an example related to your training. So all the companies are giving little bit of training related to different parts. Suppose maybe your company will also be giving you training related to your skill enhancement, maybe something related to safety. And those companies which are into this manufacturing sector, they will be giving different training related to safety, the DBTs and other things. But the point is, training is fine whether you are recording all these things or not. If you are recording everything and you are creating proper backup for that, then definitely all these things can be measured properly and the assurance agency can do that. But your question is right. All the companies are unable to understand what need to be done, how need to be done. So right now, from my experience, I would say whichever company we are helping out, we are trying to create an ecosystem altogether. so that they will be able to self-sustain in terms of what to report and how to report. So that is the and you can see that many companies having their independent ESG roles right now. So they are creating their internal system to collect all the data, report all the data, and present it to different reporting frameworks. So that is the things is happening. And another thing is related to value being realized. So definitely ESG, I would say sustainability is a long-term concept. Okay. So when you're talking about sustainability, it is all about how you are using present resources and taking care of what will happen in the future. So understanding what is the impact right now would be very tough for the organization. That is why I said that the CFO and CSO role need to be different, because the CFO will try to see, Acha, I am spending 1,000 crore rupees. What is the value I will get out of that? So that is not the right way. So today you need to see, you need to create a baseline. Suppose 22-23 is the baseline you have created related to your greenhouse gas emission, and you can see that your greenhouse gas emission is X tons of CO2 equivalent. So you need to understand what is your plan, what is your glide path, how exactly you will able to reduce, what is your year-on-year progress. And once you understand that, and once the investor community will start asking you and you are responding to them and you are getting some positive output of that, you will be able to realize the value around it. Otherwise, it would be something like right now you will feel like it is a burden, it is a compliance requirement. But we have seen companies, because I have seen the companies which thought that it is a kind of a burden, but once we started working on it, they realized a lot of changes are happening. Even all our people are saying that, okay, it's a mandatory requirement. We need to be more vigilant in terms of what the data we are providing. So it is a kind of creating an ecosystem in a collaborative way, how we can, as an organization with different departments, come together and report in a positive way. So I would say it is creating team spirit, and it is creating kind of more awareness related to different aspects of environment, social, and governance. Because whichever role we were doing and we are doing, everything can be related to sustainability. So that is how things are moving. And I believe in the subsequent years, you will find all companies will be running to you to give the solution related to maybe net zero, maybe something related to ESG solutions, because companies will able to realize the values in the coming days, because it is a kind of a long-term sustenance model.
Thank you so much, Alok. Thank you. I'd love to connect with you and discuss further if there's any particular challenges in terms of technology that you're facing in your role. So I'll discuss with you further. Thank you so much.
Sure. No worries. Thanks.
If there are any other questions, could you kindly ask or raise their hands? Okay, so I might have one or two questions myself then in that case. Then. Thank you for that. So Alok, thank you so much for this session. My name is Siddharth and I'm part of the CRFC Council, the Climate Risk and Finance Council. So my question is more in terms of what is the objective of BRSR at the end of the day? If I look at from the financial point of view, when they say a financial audit, it makes sense. There is a value in that. When people are a bit more careful about the money that they spend in, and there is a method to audit it and all of that. But what is the point of a BRSR at the end of the day?
Okay. So I will give an example. Okay. Suppose today I am on a diet. I want to reduce my weight to 80 kgs to 50 kg. So how I will able to realize that how I am going to 50 kg? Today you are at 80 kg. That is the baseline. Okay. That is something has been done. But suppose what will happen in the subsequent, suppose in the 3 months period, you could able to reduce this 20 kg and you are reporting somewhere. You will able to understand that, okay, what you did so that you reduce this much, what you did so that you could able to reach this 50 kg. So when you will reach the target of 50 kg, you can see the path that, okay, this person Siddharth has done XYZ and this is his progress, so that he could able to come from 80 to 50. At the same time, as you are reporting on that on a tool or something, you can see different parameters. Just like suppose you say today I run 10 kilometers. So that is something you will be mapped with different tool and something you are showing the assurance point of view. Okay, this is something done. Suppose tomorrow someone you are trying to influence, someone is trying to see, okay, Siddharth reduced his weight from 80 to 50. So what he did, you will show him the total thing. Then they will able to see, okay, this is something is done. This is the backup. So I would try to relate this way. Right now, every company want to understand that irrespective of their financial performance, how exactly they are able to create value in non-financial part. It is not something related to only profit. Definitely the 3 P's of people, planet, and profit profit is something, the Milton Friedman concept, it is something was there. Definitely all the businesses need some money to run the business and to for long-term sustenance. But whether the money they are spending in a positive way or not, suppose a auto manufacturer are there, they want to spend thousands of crores of money, whether they should spend on something related to EV or something related to traditional fuel, or maybe something related to BS56. That need to be understood. So the reporting is something the BRSR will give a narrative in terms of how the different companies in India is able to adhere to different requirement of the different standards. And I would say, because the XBRL format is something the SEBI has come up, that is pure play into data and numbers. So it will help us to create a baseline, because you know that India has committed to go net zero by 2070. How we will need that in 2070? Once we have proper baseline, once we understand that, okay, this is the power sector and this is their path, this is something they are reporting right now, this is something, so there can be a possible interventions from the government as well, how these things can be done. So once, right now it is kind of a carrot kind of approach, but gradually carrot and stick will come. So once the companies will start reporting, you can have a proper baseline to understand what is the trajectory, what is the presentation of operations and how these things are happening. So I would say this is the lot of things are there benefit. There are so many benefits, because companies need to chart on this part to report on multiple parameters, and it will help them in the long run.
Thank you for that answer. So, which is why I was trying to understand this part. Now, when the objective is largely making sure that companies achieve their net zero goals, or achieve these emission reduction targets and things like that. My view on this, or rather, this could come in as an opinion, or in some cases, something which is easier to implement. Would it have been wiser to just focus on one aspect of the ESG? Specifically, I come from an energy bias, so I would talk about energy and carbon reductions as the primary and the most important targets to look at. Largely because that can be quantified, verified, audited, measured, however way you want to put it. If you want to focus the company or other, that would have been a more focused approach. With respect to S and G specifically, which is so much more subjective and sensitive to a lot of bombast also. In that view, would you say that BRSR is, or other for that matter, any kind of these ESG related reporting, are they biting off more than they can chew off? Instead of focusing on one thing, they're spreading themselves thin and making it a bit more. The homework is more tiresome than the lecture that it was. So is that the way it is now?
No. So Siddharth, definitely, whatever point you have, it is kind of there is a mix of everything. Definitely, I would say those companies which are starting at the beginning, it would be too much for them. But to help that, SEBI has come up with BRSR Lite and Comprehensive. So if you will be using BRSR Lite, then definitely you won't have to face a lot of problem in terms of reporting. There is very limited indicators. But as you said that there are multiple qualitative and quantitative indicators are there in governance as well. It is not just the qualitative part, even the quantitative part. Just to give an example, what is the ratio of your median salary of your CEO to employees? That is a quantity. What is the board diversity? What is the attendance ratio? Whether it has been audited or not? What kind of policies you have? Whether the policies have been mapped to different component of NGRVC or not? All these things come to the governance section. But I agree to you that the companies need to concentrate on specific topics so that they can have a better pathway. And to address that, what the companies normally do is they do a materiality assessment. So in terms of materiality assessment, there are two concepts. One is your impact-based materiality that is been prescribed by your GRI. At the same time, there is called the concept of double materiality. So double materiality is all about how you are creating value and what is the financial implication of that. So both are the different concept. In double materiality, no doubt in India, it is not yet prominent, but in global framework like CSRD and NFRD, it is a kind of requirement right now to report on double materiality. But from materiality, once you understood the material topics, all the material topics out of thousands of materiality universe, you will be able to concentrate on specific topics around environment, social governance, which is very important to the organizations. Once that is there, you can set goals, you can put smarter targets and goals, and you can work on it and reflect on it.
Thank you for that answer. Thanks.
Thanks, Siddharth.
So if there are no other questions, perhaps we can proceed to the next stage of this session then.
Yes, Siddharth.
Very good. Okay, so namaste everybody, and thank you so much for joining us this afternoon as well this for this session and staying until the very end. So I would like to present a vote of thanks. So first of all, thank you so much, Alok, for your for taking the time out and for giving us an overview on BRSR. That has been something that we have been scratching our heads around. What is it about? What is it not? So the mark of a good session is it should provoke thought, raise more questions, raise more questions actually, and more importantly, on something which is as complicated and subjective, where a lot of opinions can also be created. It gives us an opportunity to create our own opinions on this as well. So towards that end, Alok, thank you so much for the session to provoke that kind of thoughts, for those kind of questions. Thank you everybody for participating in this session and staying until the very end of this. That is not to diss those who had prior appointments before, but thank you so much for joining, for staying until the very end. And we look forward to seeing you in other sessions that CRFR has been very pleased and delighted to host and organize. Specifically, we have a session tomorrow on climate risk management from a BFSI, from the banking, finance, and the insurance point of view. So we look forward to seeing some of you again over there. And with this, I would like to conclude that the session. I would like to conclude the session. Thank you so much again for everyone. Thank you.